let's look at it two different ways. Let's take it to judo. In judo, you have the international body, which is the IJF, International Judo Federation. Then each country have their own national governing bodies. So here in the US, that would be USA Judo. And I'm using this as an example because those are sports that are in the Olympics. With the JJIF, the ultimate goal is Olympics. IBJJF is a wonderful organization. I've met Mr. Carlos Gracie Jr. himself. He did a great job. He actually met with the JJIF years ago. There was a guy, Fernando Yamasaki, who was on a team for Brazil. He got the team together. They went and they competed in the JJIF. And what Carlos Jr. saw for his future was a little different.
Hi, this is the Social Gello with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Gello with Angelo show.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of Social Gello with Angelo podcast. I am here with T. Lee, Sarah Stanton, and we're going to talk about JJO-JJIF Pan American Jiu-Jitsu Union and the World Games in China. There's a lot of stuff right there. I just dropped a lot of information. What we're going to talk about is jiu-jitsu. We're going to talk about jiu-jitsu. And T. Lee, a little information about T. Lee. If you've been following my show, one of my friends, Daniele Bolelli, he's been on, and T. Lee is his instructor, which I just found out before we started. And that's all I know. And as you know, that's how I roll with my show. I want to thank you both for coming out and taking the time to talk about this. So I guess my opening question, man, where do I start? It seems like you run a lot of different types of organizations that are related to competing in jiu-jitsu. And I guess my first question is, how does that work? And what exactly, how does that compare to like things like IBJJF? Because that's the big popular one, right? Is IBJJF. How is what you do different or the same? I don't know. I'll let you break this down. How is it different or the same from that structure that's out there right now?
I'll answer that one, sir. Oh, go for it.
JJO is, and then I'll turn it over to Tabron so he can kind of quickly explain the difference as well. USJJO is the national governing body and full member to JJIF, which is the Jiu-Jitsu International Federation, and then the Pan American Jiu-Jitsu Union is our continental governing body. And then Tabron, if you just want to quickly explain the difference between USJJO, JJIF, our union, and IBJJF.
All right. I'll take it from there. So let's look at it two different ways. Let's take it to judo. In judo, you have the international body, which is the IJF, International Judo Federation. Then each country have their own national governing bodies. So here in the US, that would be USA Judo. And I'm using this as an example because those are sports that are in the Olympics. With the JJIF, the ultimate goal is Olympics. IBJJF is a wonderful organization. I've met Mr. Carlos Gracie Jr. himself. He did a great job. He actually met with the JJIF years ago. There was a guy, Fernando Yamasaki, who was on a team for Brazil. He got the team together. They went and they competed in the JJIF. And what Carlos Jr. saw for his future was a little different. So just to give an example, when you look at the Olympics, the most people, and I'm just going to use the example of judo, you'll have maybe 400 competitors max because each country's essentially only allowed one competitor or two per country. Well, as you know, the IBJF, it's an open tournament. So they're unlimited. That's why their top tournaments have 8,000 people. So we're both jiu-jitsu, but we're two different paths. So ours is an Olympic path. There is a path where it spreads to everybody for open tournaments.
And then for my knuckle draggers out there, and there's a lot of them that follow my show. I guess what they're going to be asking you immediately is rule sets. Are the rule sets the same, similar, or different to IBJJF as far as like what I'm allowed to do? I believe right now, if I'm up to date with rule sets, which I sometimes am and not, white belts can do straight ankle locks, for example. Purple belts can do wrist locks, no reaping, that kind of stuff. What are the rule sets similar or different? How would you break that one down?
I think that's a great question for Tabron to answer because we're going down to Panama for our Pan American Jiu-Jitsu Championships in September, and Tabron's going to be competing in Masters. So I think that's the best one for him.
Okay, so for rule sets, all right, here's one other thing I didn't mention. So for JJIF events, they have three different divisions of jiu-jitsu. So you have duo, which is basically choreographed kata. All right. Then you have three-part fighting, which is stripe-based jiu-jitsu. Then you have newaza, which is just what you would call regular BJJ. And those rules are similar to the same rules as the Abu Dhabi World Pro. They're the exact same rules with just a couple of tweaks. Now, here's an interesting thing where with JJIF, I like it. A lot of guys who are used to IBJJF, they kind of don't like this, but I think you become better this way. So there's no belt divisions. So essentially, you're supposed to do your national championship and you filter up the process that way. So ultimately, a blue belt can fight a black belt in JJIF events where that doesn't happen in IBJJF, thus why they can have 8,000 competitors. Because if you look at the Olympics, like with judo again, you know, any belt can compete, but if you're not a black belt, you're just not gonna make the world tour and all that and get your qualifying points to even make it to the Olympic Games. So JJIF is structured just like that. So there's similarities in all the rules were like there are leg locks allowed. There's no twisting leg locks, just like there is in the IBJJF gi divisions. So the rules are very similar. You can do wrist locks and all that, but because there's no belt divisions, hey, it's free for all with that. That's the only thing, except for when we have like national events, it's up to us to create like a beginner, an intermediate, and advanced. We do that. But in international competition, hey, your guy who's representing your country, he's that guy. So if he's a white belt from Papua New Guinea coming in, hey, he has to sink or swim, kind of like the refugee folks that come from when the Olympics want to include countries that you never heard of into the Olympics. They might not have the same skill set, but the dope part is they get to now represent their country. So that's awesome.
All right. You
Right.
guys,
When we arrive in Panama, nobody's asking Tabron what belt is he. He's going out, he's competing, and he's going to show what he does, show up, do business, hopefully get to the podium.
all right. So there's no, okay. That's really interesting. And then, all right, you answered most of my questions. I was about to ask you to break down about the leg, the twisting and the leg locks and all that stuff, but you broke that down. And then you just kind of casually mentioned their striking in one of your divisions, and now I have a lot of questions about that. Does that look like MMA? What are the
I'm
rules
gonna,
that
I'm gonna
say?
make it simple. Imagine judo and karate had a baby. So three-part fighting. All right. So part one is like traditional point karate. All right. The goal is this: you got to score in all parts. So part one's your striking, punching and kicking. Okay. There's no punches down the middle. So you can hit to the face, but it's all ridge hands or back fists. Okay. Yeah, you can't hit straight down the middle. So ridge hands or back fist, just for simplicity. Okay. Now you can straight closed fist to the body. It's technically light contact.
Okay.
All right. Then once you grab the gi, part one ends. Now that's part two, your throws or takedowns. So you can double leg takedown, ippon seoinage, sotomaki komi, whatever traditional throw you want. Once you end up on the ground now, you have two different options. You can pin them or submit them. Now, if you score in each phase, so part one, if I got a clean strike, so let's say a ridge hand to the face, clean, got it. Next thing, I get a koshiguruma, which is a head and arm throw. Bam, he lands on the ground, ippon style. Then from there, I hold him in a case of gatame for 25 seconds. I just won that fight with a full ippon.
Okay. So
Okay.
it's a point system. It's point system based, and then no hook punches, I'm guessing.
No, no. So that's for, there's another one I didn't tell you. There's contact jiu-jitsu, which
Oh, okay.
is, yeah. So they have a head
Right.
free and they
This
have
is
one
the
with
first
headgear.
Right. This is the first time at the Pan Ams we're going to be doing because JJIF is just adding no-gi and contact jiu-jitsu. Nogi, we tried at Worlds for the first time last year, kind of to see the interest level. And since we had a good interest level, we're going to add it at Pan Ams this year as well. So Nogi and Contact Jiu-Jitsu, which is, I don't know, Tabor, what you'd want to compare it to, almost light MMA.
Yes, that
Yeah,
one's lighter MMA,
I'd say it
whereas
is.
three-part fighting is more like what's that event they just had in Vegas with Carter Kempo guy where they had
Okay,
like
all right. So yeah, no, yeah. So
okay,
that one would
yeah,
be I'll go over and I just wait on that. So John Hackelman, who's Chuck Liddell's coach, recently introduced Sport Kajukembo to the Kajukembo tournament, their world championships. And what they did was essentially his rules were pretty simple. Only a jab. Only a
hmm
jab is allowed. Because as you know, with if you're not going to have a state commission come in and allow knockouts, and if you're not, we're based in the United States, so and it's done
hmm
in Vegas, and the commission was there, like
yeah, yeah.
some more fun stuff. Like we're having our little tournament, and I say little because compared to IKF, I mean IKF was right next door to us, having their championships right next to us, the Muay Thai championships and the kickboxing championships, and the commission was right there, like. Their referees are right there. They saw me going in, like, oh yeah, we heard about what you're doing. So because of that, because we didn't want to go through the state commission, because if you allow knockouts, in the United States, you need to have the commission
hmm
there, which would mean, I don't know, I think I'm legally allowed to say this. I hope I'm legally allowed to say this, but it was like a $10,000 fee. It was a
hmm
$10,000 fee and a percentage of ticket sales if we decided to allow knockouts. And since we're not, Kajukembo is not it's not the UFC. It's not
hmm hmm
it's not a huge organization. We just couldn't afford to pay that money and do it that way. So hence the rules. Only a jab, no knockout, semi-contact. Once
hmm
it went to the ground, it was essentially IBJJF rules with no leg locks. And they had 30 seconds on the ground. Oh, and
hmm
then when it came to hitting to the body, you can go a little harder to the body, and just about every technique was allowed to the body. And of course, no growing shots and all that stuff. But
hmm
it pretty much looked like if you crossed kickboxing and you only allowed a jab, and then once they went to the ground and IBJJF rules and you didn't have leg locks, that's what you're left with. And I believe he
hmm
gave him like 30 seconds to a minute on the ground. If it
Okay.
was like if it got stale, he'd stand them up. So like if you go 30 seconds and you're active, he would let it run up to a minute. But if it's inactive, if there's just two people just holding on to each other, he'd stand them back up and keep it going. So
How
that's
many minutes was the total fight?
three.
Okay. That's the same with three-part fighting, which I'll give
Right.
you a history. I first learned about it in 2014 when I got the organization. And my personal preference is I think that's plenty because it's a lot of action. It makes people go. I know a lot of guys, unfortunately, in the martial art world, a lot of our grappling folks don't cross train. So they only know like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They're not like old school like us, who most of us started in karate, worked our way to wrestling and Jiu-Jitsu and judo and whatnot. And so the mind isn't as open, unfortunately. But when you really look, man, at 3 minutes, you're going because you have to score. There's no draws. If you don't win, you don't win, right? And it's just on to the next. You lost your chance. So I tell people, man, the 3 minute, it's not like what people think. And having a goal in any, that's the thing. At the end of the day, it's sport.
Yeah.
We got to keep that in mind. Sport is sport. Trust me, I'm a big time self-defense guy. I had to do it in real life. And I always laugh at some of these debates of what's real and what's not. Sport gives us a great way to test things. It's like things being tested in the lab, okay? You got to test it. You don't really know how it's going to perform till you put it, like if it's tires, until you put them on the road. You don't know. But there's a formula. You do your testing behind things. That's sport. So some of these people get in that debate of like, well, it's not real. And then you look at them, they're walking with a cane and whatnot. Like, come on, man. Like, real. So
Yeah.
I think three-part, I like to call it this. It is the best sample of a taste of MMA. All right. But it covers everything that you would do in a fight. You get used to being struck. A lot of people, as soon as a punch is thrown or a kick, they do this and stuff, because they're not used to it. Or it gets you more used to having your hands up. I always say, look, there's three rules of fighting. Rule number one, don't freak out. Rule number two, you will get hit. Rule number 3, fight back. That's what I teach my kids all the time. I don't care about styles, all right? But those are the things you got to worry about, right? Not panicking as soon as you see somebody punching you. Because if you're not used to getting punched, what are you going to do? You're going to freak out, okay? And easier said than done when people who only grapple say, well, I'm just going to time up. Well, look, I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt, so I can talk shit, all right? Most of these fools suck at takedowns. So I'm not hearing that, all right? I'll tell them any day, hey, I got enough rank. Well, okay. And hey, I got my double. So I understand takedowns. A lot of these guys, they talk all this, and I'm like, you want to talk reality, all right? Look, you need timing, number 1. If you're boxing's all timing, all right? And that's why I always say judo and boxing have a lot of similarities when it comes to footwork and the timing, okay? Fighting, you got to understand timing. And I'm sorry, if you don't do takedowns, you don't understand timing. And you're going off of luck when you're just going to charge, and, you're not some great NFL linebacker who they even understand timing. So 3-part fighting is one of the best things, I think, for people just to get a taste of introducing their striking with grappling, learning how to combine it and time it, which is what you need for overall protection.
Yeah. And the 3 fighting is great as well, just because it's also very spectator friendly. They'll see that spectators can literally see the score right on the scoreboard, the television scoreboard, and then they love the action. It's also for the guy that, wants a little bit of fighting still, but has to get up and go to the work in the morning and not worry about getting knocked out all the time. I mean, there's injuries, obviously, but it's not like being in a full contact MMA. And I love also how in the 3-part fighting, the referees force you to go from one section to the other. If you're just on the ground forever, they're going to stand you back up because you're being passive. If you're throwing punches and kicks in part 1, they're still going to stop you, give you a penalty. If you're there for just throwing it for a minute and a half, for example, never trying to get into a grab, they want to see action in all 3 parts. So it really makes for a good sport to watch as well.
Yeah. And, I had some people talk shit about Hackleman's division. And me and Hackleman had a lot of conversations before we rolled out that rule set. And what he was saying was, well, and I think for him, it was perfect. That's Chuck Liddell's coach. Like, if anybody knows MMA, it's Hackleman. And for someone who's been at the top of his game for his students, Glover Teixeira, Chuck Liddell, and then under Glover, you have Alex Pereira. You have UFC champions, right? For him to say, hey, this rule set is best for your everyday martial artist. And then he said, people that were telling him, like, okay, I don't like the rule set. I want it to be more like MMA. And his answer was, well, then go do MMA. Yeah. Like if there's a place for that. It's called MMA. If you feel that it's not aggressive enough, it's not hard enough, it's not pushing you to where you want to be pushed to, and you're that kind of person, then go do MMA. This is for your everyday martial artist who, like Sarah was saying, has to go to work the next day, and doesn't want to go explain to their boss why they can't go to work the next day because they tore their LCL. Let's say they're a construction worker. What are you going to do? Like, right? You're going to explain to your boss, oh, I have this hobby, and sorry, I can't come in for a few months. And can you put me behind? Can you give me a desk job? And and that's the part where I think there's this disconnect on the internet. Where
you got a lot of keyboard warriors, and look, like you said, man, if you want to do MMA from a guy who's done it, go do it. But most of these guys aren't going to do it. Okay, so it's just they're idealists, I like to say, and I don't even think we're going to waste that interview talking because you and I know the truth on this. I mean, nothing's stopping you if you want to go do MMA. All right. Yeah. But the truth is most people don't. Most people do not like getting hit. Look, I know how to strike. I don't like getting hit. Okay. That's the reality. Yeah. But you always got these people that think, oh, yeah, well, it's not this. And I'm like, what's stopping you? All right. And if anyone's going to question John Hackleman, you know what? Best of luck to you. Yeah. Best of luck. Okay. Yeah. Whatever. I don't even need to go there. If the guy's a legend, come on.
Yeah. And again,
question this guy.
The way it works and what you're trying to break down is this idea. At the end of the day, though, all that being said and done, I had my students asking me after they saw the footage if it was MMA. Like, hey, were they going full contact? Like, no, we did not allow full contact. Well, that was intense. I'm like, well, yeah, because intensity, you can still have intensity and not have injuries. It can be intense without being brutal,
Look at
right?
wrestling and judo. It's all intensity. Okay. You get what I'm saying? It's all intense. What? There's no striking, but tell me that's not intense, right? So it's proving your point. And not to go too much on the three part. I mean, we're explaining that because a lot of people don't know about it, but we do have the Newaza, which is regular BJJ, and it is huge around the world. Okay, so when we have our world championships, like right now, the World Games is going over, and it's Chengdu, China, right, Sarah? Right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, we have the
Those,
World Games going on in China right now. And then our World Championships for JJIF this year is going to be in Thailand. And that's going to have a ton of jiu-jitsu competitors and a ton of three-part fighting competitors. So that's really good place for people to go and test their skill set as well. When we're speaking about also like jiu-jitsu, BJJ slash Newaza, it's been amazing bringing people from the USA too, because they're competing over here, they're competing just in Pan America, and then we bring them over to Abu Dhabi and they're fighting so many different countries and testing their skill sets against moves they've never even seen.
And then is this somehow connected to the Olympics? Because you keep saying World Games, and I'm in my head, I'm thinking because in Japan, World Games. So it's weird. I don't know if it's a I think it's a Japanese thing. So Japan loves international competition. So like
Mhm.
the first thing I noticed was my wife loves watching judo, volleyball. I've never been big about. Well, I'm more of a there's astronomers and astronauts. I'm more the guy who wants to. I'm the one who wants to get into space.
Right.
I don't want to see the stars. I want to be there. But my wife and all her family, they love watching the World Games, right? So like that, all the sports. Is that related to that, or is this a different World Games? I guess that's my question.
The super quick answer is that jiu-jitsu is not in the full Olympics yet. There's Summer Olympics, World Olympics, then we have the World Games, and the World Games is basically for all the sports working their way into the Olympics. And JJIF right now is working our way into the Olympics. There's so much paperwork, so much through WADA, through anti-doping. You have to prove you have so many tests done. They look at that. We have gender equality. So we're getting basically each year they ask for everything. We send our paperwork in, et cetera. So we're really getting there well. And that's how we've been in the World Games. I would think I can't give a time frame when we might actually get in. It's when a spot opens up, but we're doing really well making our progress to get in.
Yeah, because I think a lot of Americans don't understand this. Because I know I
Mhm.
didn't. So, but
Mhm.
When I got to Japan, I felt like I was like, okay, so you have the Olympics and you have the World Games because they
Mhm.
watch the World Games out here, like they follow it. So like you'll turn on the television, you'll see the World Games on TV in Japan because they and you'll see all kinds of sports like you just mentioned. Like you said, if you talk about the same World Games I'm thinking about, you'll see different sports that normally you would not see in the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It's the same World
It'll be all
Games, and
Yeah,
you
it's the
get
same World Games.
right. It's the sports you're not seeing in the Olympics currently, but the World Games is under the patronage of the International Olympic Committee.
Yeah, and then also with that being said, you also still have your other sports like judo and all the other ones are still being played at the World Games. Is that correct?
Like some of the martial arts sports like judo is already in the Olympics.
Are they at the World Games now, or is that different?
No, they wouldn't be at the World Games because
Okay,
they're already an Olympic
they're already
sport.
Olympics, so that's a separate thing. And I don't know these things. That's why I'm and that's why I'm asking. That's
Right.
what I'm asking. And I'm guessing most of the people who watch, they throw that stuff out there. I've seen that conversation right now. I just saw a jiu-jitsu forum where everyone was arguing about how jiu-jitsu will never end up in the Olympics. So, and I see that being thrown around a lot, but I also know, spoken to enough people in the background, that I know there's a lot of people working towards that. So it sounds, if I'm not mistaken, you are part of the group of people that are
Working
working
toward.
toward that.
So for an example is we had the World Games here when it was in Alabama, and JJIF only had not you only get a certain number of slots. Like Tabern was saying before, we can't have 8,000 people. I think we had 96 slots because we can only have a certain amount of time, certain amount of days. We're only going to have a certain amount of medals. So you accumulate points as a competitor. You get a certain amount of numbers for your wins at your continental championship, which ours is the one in Panama. Then you get a certain amount of points for your wins at Worlds. And then there's a whole list at the end of a couple of years who's selected to go to the World Games. And then they have to look at continental quotas because they don't want all the competitors just from Asia or all the competitors just from Europe or from our continent. They want like a representation to make it truly representative of the world. So that's how we end up with the World Games and the amount of competitors in it and make it representative. Um, but and then it's kind of weird as well because you have to be your governing body like us, USJJO. We have to be a nonprofit in order to be the full member for JJIF. So there are multiple jiu-jitsu organizations in the USA, but we're nonprofit and you only have one that's a full member. We take competitors on our team from other organizations. We don't limit our competitors to only competing with us. We're happy, they want to go out to compete, great. They want to go to the tournament in Las Vegas. They want to compete at IBJJF. That's fantastic. Get the competitive experience. But for us, we can only bring a certain amount to our championships.
And then I know, like, for example, boxing in the Olympics. Olympic boxing is only at the amateur level. And correct me if I'm wrong. I told you, please call me out if I'm full of shit, and I'm full of shit quite a bit. So here we go. In Olympic boxing, you can only be an amateur status. So if you're a pro boxer, you cannot enter the amateur Olympics because it's an amateur division. Am I off here? Is that
So that's weird, okay? And I'm gonna tell you, because they hold that with boxing, right? But then look at our basketball dream team. So I couldn't tell you. It's weird because that's for certain sports. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if that was the truth for all sports, we wouldn't have the dream team, which are not so much dream now. But you get my point.
Yeah, it's cut.
But that's for boxing. You have to be an amateur. You cannot have had a pro fight.
Okay. So then
otherwise you can't do the Olympics. But jiu-jitsu doesn't have a professional.
Right. So
if it were to go.
Exactly. We don't have something we can say as professional jiu-jitsu truly. Would that be the professional MMA person that's making a ton of money? Would they really want to go? But we don't have like Tabern's a professional jiu-jitsu fighter to limit to people's ability to go.
So how would we factor in, and this is a question that's going to come up, and I'm not trying to push you or anything, but how do we factor in like this whole thing that the UFC is doing with UFC Jiu-Jitsu? Because they're kind of like,
okay, that's a for-profit thing. Okay. That's why I gave the disclaimer in the beginning with IBJJF. So the UFC is doing their own version of IBJJF. Same thing like the Craig Jones International, Craig Jones International, Invitational, and then ADCC. Those are all private for-profit. They're making money off of it. That's what they do. They don't give two craps about the Olympic because key words she just mentioned, you got to be a nonprofit. Okay. None of those companies are nonprofit, right? Okay. They are for-profit. Like I said, they're great at doing what they do. They've helped to spread it worldwide, right? Here's the thing in America, like you were mentioning that you didn't know about the whole global sports thing, right? In America, everything sports-wise is based upon education. If it's in the school system, it becomes popular. All right. Look at all the, anything you get a scholarship sports-wise is probably a pro side for the most part in America. And that's how we look at sports. We did it different to the international folk. And that's why it's hard when you're looking at it from an American lens, because we like, okay, I know baseball, I know football, I know basketball, our big three. And then hockey, you can arguably, right? But those are really big in America, but they're in every major university, the top three sports. Okay, that's how people get funded and they go about it. Like when you look at our Olympic wrestlers, well, most of those guys are NCAA wrestlers and they decided they want to try out or whatnot. Well, with jiu-jitsu not being in school and judo, I'm a judo guy too. Our biggest mistake we made in judo is not going into the school system. Because if we're in the school system like wrestling, we'd have an overall better U.S. Olympic judo team because we'd have more people to pick from, right? Now, look, for all your listeners, hey, look at judo as tier 3 wrestling. So tier 1 wrestling is freestyle, then tier 2 is Greco. Then I say our tier 3 is judo. So the guys that don't make the Greco or freestyle team, hey, put on a jacket, learn to hit an arm throw or a Japanese wizard, and let's go and represent the U.S. well. So back to the saying, it's nonprofit versus profit, to make it simple, okay? For the Olympics, nonprofit, you only get maybe 2 people per weight category. UFC and all that, they're about making money. They're on TV already, get their ratings. That's how they get paid. I hope that explains it best.
It does. And then what I'm also getting cleared up here, because this is now, probably I'm guessing the clickbait title is probably going to be Jiu-Jitsu in the Olympics for this thing. But I can already see myself for clicking that out because that's what people are going to want to hear. But really, what you're breaking down though is, you just made a good point, is that thing with boxing is it's done, it seems like it's done arbitrarily per sport, per
Mhm.
organization. So I guess to get down to the core of my question is, if, because we're still in a preliminary phase here, if Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu did end up in the Olympics, would it be more similar to boxing with the rules that apply to them in amateur boxing, or do you think it'd be more similar to what you just mentioned with basketball, where we would see big names being able to jump in?
I'll do one better for you. It'd be like, I'm a pro football player, okay? You get a lot of pro football players go buy a bobsled and they end up in the Winter Olympics. So being that it's a completely different sport, I would say, now this is no guarantee, but this will be my guess. If I'm doing professional MMA, that doesn't make me professional jiu-jitsu. Look at Mighty Mouse, for example. All right. When he retired, what did he do? He went, earned his black belt and all that, but he was not a professional jiu-jitsu guy. So I would say it would be something like that, where you can't hold just because I'm a professional in one sport. Now I'm doing another sport that I'm amateur in. You got to give him his amateur chance.
And then also,
Right.
going with what you said earlier, if I'm following this conversation correctly, there's no belt system, or there is a belt system, but we're not looking at the
Yes.
belt system. We're looking at skill. So in other words, if it did end up in the Olympics, anyone would be able to jump in if they
Well,
if
this is
they went
generally
through
how that would
if they went through
work.
the
Sarah, I'll
process.
let you explain it. Explain how you're supposed to do the national championship, then the continental, then the worlds.
Well, I mean, basically, you can do your nationals how you want to, and then your continental team, like for instance, you get, just take three-part fighting because we've been talking about that. An under 85 kilos as a category. We get two men in under 85 kilos. How your country wants to pick those two guys is up to it's up to you. It would probably be your two top guys from your nationals. But you send your two top people. You can't have more than those two. If you have five guys wanting to go an under 5 kilo adult, it's not going to happen. You can still only send two. And it doesn't matter. That guy might be an orange belt, that guy might be a black belt. And different systems rank people by different colors by different ways.
So the country themselves would have their national championship. They would choose their champions. This would be done through competition, which I mean, I can't see anybody arguing against this. This would be done through competition and winning, and then the countries themselves would make that decision as to who would move on from there.
Correct.
Exactly.
And like for instance, like this year, we have a team going to Thailand for the JJIF Worlds. For that, if we need a second person in under 85 kilos, to use that example again. We're nonprofit. We're not getting money from the U.S. Olympic Committee because it's not a full Olympic sport yet. We don't have a government donor like a lot of countries do, but we don't have a sports ministry here. So if we have a guy that's the second guy under 85 kilos that can do the self-funded trip, and he's the guy that can make it, we're going to take him and let him know that, hey, you know what, whatever belt you are, this is what you're going to compete in. You don't know the other 20 guys in your division and what they are, but this is what you're going to compete in. So since that's going to be self-funded, we will take the extra person.
And that would be, again, they're funding their own. And this is nothing for anybody who might not be keeping up with sports in general in the Olympics. I mean, there's been plenty of documentaries in wrestling. There's been a bunch of documentaries of just the sport of wrestling and how there's no money involved when someone decides to go to the Olympics. Like, they're funding themselves to go there. They're trying to get their own sponsors. And then even in judo, I'll grab judo as an example because I'm disclaimer, I don't have a rank in judo, but I do have a lot of friends.
I do, so I'll correct you.
Good, thank you.
Actually getting ready. I'm actually getting ready to go to my international certification.
Good.
I'll help you out. Don't worry.
So if you've been following any of my shows, if this is your first one, thanks for watching. I'll put a link here to the judo stuff I did with Baron Shepard and my friend Vincent Boussaint. Probably messed up. I know I fucked up his name. He's French, and he was breaking down about who's breaking down in that episode about how France handles judo and how Japan handles judo. And then Baron came in about how America handles judo. And they're all judo by all means, but I can tell you living in Japan that the way the country supports its judoka, its judo players, is very different from the way America does it, and very different from the way France does it. Because my wife gets upset that France puts in a lot of money into their judo players. They have a lot of money behind them. I forget the name of who the top judo player in France is right now, but I believe he's worth over $1 million because
Teddy Rene.
yep, and it's because they're supporting him, they're sponsoring him, and the track to judo is completely different from America as far as what they expect their judo coaches and players to do. Like there's a whole university system. They have to go study kinesiology. They can't just one day say, I want to be a coach. No, you have to go to the university. You got to earn a degree. There's all these things you have to do. And again, that's each country's making these decisions. So like at the end of the day, then it's judo and it goes to the Olympics and all other stuff. So like if I'm following everything you're saying correctly, again, it's up to the countries to say if there's going to be money involved. It's up to the countries that's going to kind of support that. Is that, am I off here?
Yeah, no, that's correct. And I'll give you a good example. You look at the IBJF has done. If like our judo or jiu-jitsu could go that route, we'd have plenty of funding. But that's the difference between a profit and the way a nonprofit. There's different rules nonprofits have to go by. Where when you do it for profit, it's kind of a little easier because it's just different rules.
Yeah. And again, judo, it's in the Olympics. It is nonprofit, if I'm not mistaken. Like it's still nonprofit, but if the government gets behind it, like it did in France, and it's all about government. It's all about
that won't happen in the United States. Like
it's not even happening. It's not even happening for judo in the U.S. right now. Just for judo, we're not even talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu right now, but just for judo, it's not happening. Any judo player I talk to says that.
No, because like I mentioned earlier, the way we do sports in America, if you look at it, it's through schools. Okay, see, think about this: the colleges, their alumni give them all this money when they got a winning football or basketball team. Okay, then that money trickles down to the smaller sports. So if you're not in the university, don't plan on getting money. That's just how it is. People can complain, but that's how we do it in America. The government gives you no money, but it's open because it's a free market, right? You have other ways of making it. You know, you got jerseys, all these different sales. If some judoka want to be crafty and come with the next Air Judo Jordan shoe or whatnot, all right, you can do that in America. Well, you can't do that in some of these other countries.
I'm not a judoka, but if there were Air Judoka Jordans, I'd buy them.
See, there you go. Hey, remember this date and time, copyright, trademark. That's my idea. Okay.
I mean, I don't see our country here in the USA. We're never going to have. Well, I mean, it would be awesome if we did, but I don't see us ever having a sports ministry developed just to support all the sports that aren't college sports. I don't see that happening. It would be fantastic if jiu-jitsu made it into the schools, even elementary, high school, just because it's a great sport for people to learn self-defense, even if they never continue to pursue it. It's just would be really good to have in schools. But if we got it into the school system, then it would end up being in college eventually. But I think that would be a little ways off as well.
I know on the individual level, I'm seeing it happen. I know I'm connected to enough people. I've known enough Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coaches that on an individual level, and again, it's not government, it's by county. I know a few Jiu-Jitsu instructors who are teaching Jiu-Jitsu in the school system, and they're pushing for something like that. But again, they're not connected, they're not networked, so it's all like one shot, one hit basis.
It's most likely in a private school because, like, for example, we got judo out here in the Parks and Recs, which people thought you couldn't do, but it's out here in the LA City Parks and Recs, and we've been growing it for the lead up for the 2028. But that's a whole nother episode. Things can be done, and at the end of the day, it's unity, and that's kind of what we came on for, is just to get people like, I think 3-part is a great crossover with your guys from karate, Kempo, Kaja Kempo, where they can come in, get that jiu-jitsu experience, but still, you know, they don't want to just do Brazilian. It's like, oh, wait, you got a strike base? Let me do that because I still can win as a striker if I'm not the best grappler. And that's one thing I saw that was impressive with the three part, right? Because remember, that's not the only thing we have under JJF. We still got duels. So let's say you ain't a fighter, you're just not a competitor. Well, you can go, and I think the Valente brothers were kind of doing something like this where it's a demonstration. Well, JJF been doing it forever. All right. You go in there, come up with your creative, oh my God, I
Your
forgot the word. Your
your duo,
choreography. Yeah, yeah,
right?
your choreography. Okay. You just got to touch on, there's like 5 different categories you got to do, but you can do it however you want. They even let you do it to music now. Okay. So there's something for everybody, opposed to some of the other organizations where it's just what we call Newaza Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. All right. So it's really an open door for martial artists as a whole.
Oh, and then one more question about the takedowns. Are they only judo takedowns, or are you allowing doubles, singles, and all that other stuff?
You can do double. That's why I like
Cool,
three part.
cool, cool,
Yes,
nice.
you
All right,
can single leg. That's why I said throws or takedowns.
cool, cool,
Okay.
cool, cool.
It's like old school judo. I can do my Teguruma, all that stuff. So however you take them down.
Sarah, do you want to say something? Looks like you want to say something.
nope. I was just listening to what Tabor was saying.
Okay, just making sure. Just making sure we're not cutting you off.
No, but if I add something, I guess, to what Tabor was saying too, it has not taken off with popularity in the USA or Pan America actually either. But JJIF, what Tabor mentioned, has the duo system, and they have duo show now as well, where you can set like your coordinated self-defense to music. Even you have yourself and then a partner, and you just plan your own routine, and you're never even it's really good for some competitors because you're never even coming in contact with your opponent. It's just you and your partner. So that works really well for some people that want to get into the competition, fight at a higher level, and not really get on the ground and have to grapple, have to do a bunch of kicking and striking against somebody they don't know.
And then, how many of these tournaments? I guess this is a multiple pronged question. I guess we'll start with just the U.S. How many of these tournaments are held in the U.S. right now, like a year?
We are trying to grow that state by state because it is so very difficult to get a lot of interest just for a specific tournament. Like our last one we had was in Ohio. Taborn's working on getting maybe our nationals for what would it be 27 out in Los Angeles. We're gonna have our nationals for 26. We're looking at doing with the group we're working with in Ohio as well. And then we're trying to get them more across each state to state, just so there's more local exposure. But it's been also difficult to get a lot of local interest just for like a smaller tournament instead of just the larger international.
And I'll use Kajikembo as an example. Kajikembo only has one tournament a year. Sometimes they have two. There's been talk about this year. There was the one in Vegas, and there's another one being done in Hawaii. But that's new. Normally, historically, and they started doing this. Oh man, Kajikembo is gonna come after me. Around the 50s or 60s. I'll just say 60s. Probably around the 60s, maybe even as late as the 70s, when they started their Kajikembo tournament. And since then into now, 2025, they only have their tournament once a year. Mm-hmm. So if let's just say for someone casually watching this episode and they're interested in jumping into one of your tournaments in the US, they don't have the funds to go travel to the ones that you're having internationally. Because as we talked, I didn't talk to you off camera too much, but from the email exchanges we had, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in England right now. So I was like, all right, you're traveling. You're traveling around the world running this thing internationally. So I guess I'm sure there's people watching that probably might be interested in doing something like that, but I'm guessing most of them it would be more affordable for them to meet up with y'all here. And I say here, I'm in Japan. That was stupid. I should say there in the US. About how many do you have in the US a year? More like one or two, or
I would
one or two, right?
Yes, I would say I would put us on the same as Kajikembo right now with one or two. Yeah. And then hopefully expanding more to each state, but one or two.
Okay. And that's totally cool, because now anybody watching knows that they can participate in this once or twice a year in the US. And then of course there's more internationally, they can go from there if they're looking
Right,
for the
because right in the USA we want to try to make it where there's like one on one side of the country and another on the other side of the country, so people can at least get a little bit of opportunity, and then start to put little local ones. But and if they want to find out more information, on our website, usjjo.org, and then also we're on Instagram and Facebook.
All right. And I'm just going to remind both of you to please send me one link to that website. And what I'll do, and if I don't, just remind me to. Because as I said, I've been off camera, I've been punched in the head a lot and I forget a lot of shit. I'm going to put that right here in the link. So if you've been watching this the whole time, and if I did my job properly, which I usually do, there is a link here to that website as a card. So you can click there and it'll take you there so you can see more information on that.
Okay, and I'll send you the JJIF.sport one as well, because that one will have different tournaments listed on it too. And
Okay.
then a lot of details in each jiu-jitsu system on our background.
All right, cool. And then logistically, off camera, I'll tell you some technical stuff that's boring to say on camera. All right. Well, we are getting close to our wrap up. Is there anything dire that you want the public to know about this projects sounds like to me, but this overall project that sounds to me like the groundwork to end up with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the Olympics one day? Is there anything you
So
want?
let me correct that. It's not just Brazilian, it's Jiu-Jitsu.
Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay, because that's the thing. Like, in my opinion, I think three-part has a better shot than Brazilian, just because 3 minutes more action, even though it's a 6 minute for the Brazilian, but 3.5 of that's always butt scooting, so it's not TV friendly, right? Hey, like I said, I call my guys out. Like that's the thing. I honestly don't think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has a chance of getting the Olympics just because you got wrestling and judo. But what made me give it to JJIF when I saw that three-part, I said, nah, they might be on to something here because you got that cross where you got both worlds. You got exciting throws, exciting groundwork, and you got some scrapping going on. But I mean, there's a lot of people who think, hey, we're going to get Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Honestly, most guys don't even want BJJ in the Olympics because, like the numbers, like I told you, think about this. If I'm Carlos Gracie Jr., eventually he's going to get up to 10,000 people for his world championships, right? Which that's a whole nother show we could talk about because there's so many world championships.
Yeah,
but anyway, if I was him, which he doesn't, I don't think, it doesn't benefit him. Okay, a few people who's going to be the national, they want no part of that. They have a successful thing going. It's been working and he runs with it. He makes no gripes about it. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. But for those who want to represent their country, that's why I say, hey, man, get into the JJIF international competition because that's the route you're going to go to do it. And most of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out there has no care for Olympic inclusion. A lot of people talk, no, they don't. And just look at how it's run. That's what I'd say. All right. If you have no idea, you're not with any other sport that is in the Olympics, you're clueless to all the things you got to do to be included in the Olympics. And the way all of these Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu organizations run, they're not even trying. There's one, Giles Federation, SJJF. But other than that, the rest of them, they're not even designed or set up for it. They don't care.
Well, I think a good example from I do a bunch of different sports. I do too many sports. Well, I also like surfing. I love surfing. I've been surfing since I was a kid. And if you look at surfing and you look at, so the whole world was so excited when surfing was introduced to the Olympics, except for the surfing community. The whole world was excited about it, but the surfing community was like, the fuck you mean you're going to put surfing in the Olympics? Like, you're going to be having it, but wait a second, the way we do things in surfing is for their championships, they send them to the best surf spots all around the world. They time it to have the best surf, and then they have different categories from big wave surfing to long, just like jiu-jitsu. They have different divisions based on the ocean, and they go to the best places in the world to do this sport. So they're saying, wait, so now you're just going to make everyone surf in Japan's way. I live in Japan. The waves suck out here. How are you gonna categorize and now say that this is your world champion? They have an Olympic gold world champion. How do you compare that to the actual world champion that they already picked with all the funding and the best surfer in the world? The sport, it goes in a completely different direction in the private industry than it did in the Olympic industry. And that was the
Exactly.
big gripe. And I see the same under the same context from what you were telling
Mm-hmm.
me right now. I see this is just history repeating itself. I've seen the exact same thing happen with surfing. And if Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu did end up in the Olympics, I can only imagine it's going to be the same fucking argument about people
Yeah.
saying, well, that's a paper champion. The real champion is, and come on now, like this has been happening. What Foreman was it? Yeah, it was George Foreman, Muhammad Ali. He didn't make it to the Olympics. Foreman becomes the champion. He comes back, and people were like, "You're not the people's champion, Muhammad Ali." Same. This is just like the
Mm-hmm.
same shit, different day argument that I've seen for a long time. Except now we have the internet, so now like people can have this argument even more.
Everybody's butthole gets exposed now, right? 'Cause you got the internet.
Yeah.
Everybody can be whatever champion they want to be on socials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's.
But yeah, I mean, the whole Olympic thing, we don't know if it's going to be jiu-jitsu that would take us there the best or three-part fighting. But we'll try for both and do whatever we're going to look the best that will take us that route.
All right.
And that's the benefit, the fact we give 3 options instead of just one. So whichever one ends up, great. And that's why I say get involved, because, you know, you're upping your chances, not just putting one chance in, you got 3. Well, actually 4, because we didn't even discuss the contact, but hey, that's another one. So we'll have to do that for another day.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have, I don't know. Yeah, you do. I hate to do this. If you were going to go over the contact real quick, what's the abbreviated rule set for the contact?
Kind of like Sambo, but not as vicious.
Okay.
So it's continuous fighting. So if it was karate, remember continuous fighting?
Yep.
It's like that, but you still get to do the takedowns and go. So imagine continuous fighting, and there's 2 versions. There's one with the head gear, and then they have head impact free. So imagine Kyokushin with BJJ.
Okay.
That's what that one is like, okay? To give you a good, see, it's a good thing I know these martial arts, so I can get these simple examples, right?
That's that. And anybody watching my show does know those 2 things, so that you
exactly.
That makes perfect sense.
So that would be for head impact free Kyokushin karate with BJJ. All right, just continuous fighting, and you just go, you win by the submission, or I'm not so certain of the accumulation of points. I listened to their whole seminar on it. I'm still confused, so I don't want to confuse anyone else. It's a lot. It's one of those things you gotta kind of see it and just you'll figure it out along the way.
I'm guessing it's based on a judgment system on who controlled the fight.
Yeah,
that's probably
pretty much.
I've ran enough open martial arts tournaments and been enough to, I think, with continuous, that's how it usually works. I continue.
You know what?
They say accumulation of points in continuous, but at the end of the day, unless you have counters.
No. So there's a technical knockout. So let's say I do a gut punch to you and you fall down. All right, that's technical 1. If that happens twice, you're out. And then with the head, I think if you fall down from a head punch with the headgear, they consider that knockout. So they do have that from what I recall. So that's kind of how they do it. So you can submit them, but there are technical knockouts. Like I said, you knock the wind out, he falls down, like as if you took him down, that counts.
All right.
And you can only have that happen twice.
And then when they're on the ground, is there ground and pounds or no more ground and pounds?
They actually do ground and pound, if I'm not mistaken. You can hit them, but I think it's only certain spots, like maybe you hit the body only or something like that.
Body only. Okay. All right.
Yes.
So that's very similar to what JMMAF does for their amateur MMA division, where they don't, same thing. They don't allow a full knockout, but if you get clipped, they'll stop it at 1. If you get clipped even once and it looks like you got hurt, they'll stop the fight immediately for the same reason that, well, Japan doesn't have a commission base, but they're trying to save the fighters from getting brain injuries before they go anywhere else. That's what they're trying to do.
And that's why I'm in agreement. Some people don't like the no head, but I think it's awesome because, like I said, these are amateurs. They're just trying to have fun. So, look, if you want to go get hit in the head, go to your gym, tell your buddies hit you in the head. But in the competition for safety,
I'm gonna say don't do that.
Hey, if you must have it, do it there. But in the competition, you get what I'm saying? Hey, I get it for safety and liability. It makes sense. Yeah. I can hit them as hard as I want to the body. It's up to you to protect the head in a real fight. But getting hit in the head is overrated. You're not gonna be.
At it, in a tournament here is a lot more than just doing the three-part fighting.
Yeah. And then the other thing about getting hit in the head, we're gonna wrap this up because I know I have a student in the gym right now waiting for me. So what I'm gonna say is, for those tough guys out there, in the amateur MMA division in Japan, the reason they do that is because that same amateur division, and this is when I was fighting for Pancreas Hybrid, which is the same one that Boss Rutan fought for. And I never went pro. I just wanted, I got to Japan and figured it would, even though I was at the end of my career, I took some losses because I knew it was going to happen because I was too old to be fighting, but I did it anyway. I came out here and I wanted to do it. Who's going to pass up the opportunity to want to fight in the same Boss Rutan's organization like the one he did? So like I went in there, and the way they worked was their amateur division was a place where if you won enough fights, it would give you an opportunity to shoot into their professional promotions out here, stuff like Gladiator, the One Championships. Well, not One Championships. What's the one that they have in Japan every year? It's now, I think it's One FC. I think it's One FC. I think it is. I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But either way, it allows you to springboard into the professional MMA organizations. But they do not want their fighters to get hurt in the amateur level. They don't want people getting concussed. They want them to come in to their pro fighting careers with as few injuries and head trauma as possible, which is just last week, a Japanese boxer died just last week, and he's in a professional fight. So they're trying to avoid the amount of brain damage they get before they go pro. So for any tough guys out there that look at the stuff like what you're doing and the stuff that like what Hackman was doing, going back to that argument of, oh, it's not tough enough. There is like this real danger for, even if you wanted to be tough, that you want to be safe before you start going into those other levels. So what I am going to say, for anybody interested in doing MMA, but they're not sure, I feel like your organization is a perfect place to figure out whether or not you're ready for something like that. Because I always say, like they say, oh, jiu-jitsu for everyone. MMA is not for everyone. They cannot use that slogan. You cannot say MMA for everyone. So rather than taking the risk of going straight into MMA, because even with those rule sets, I still tore my LCL and ended my shot at wanting to go further. So you can get rid of the head injuries, but there's still the knee injuries and the ligament injury, the stuff that comes. Even when you're trying to say semi-contact, there's injuries that come. So like, I feel like your organizations like this are a perfect place to just test. Like, hey, how did you feel about that? And then if you want to push further, okay then. Or you can just if you're young and bravado, you want to go straight into MMA, go for it. But if you're older, or even if you're just not sure, I feel like this kind of organization is perfect to kind of test out the waters to see where you're at. And that's why I really appreciate you two coming out and taking the time to explain all that to your average person, because I know I barely can keep up with it. So
Good. No, we appreciate you having us on, and maybe when there's another opening at some point after we get back from Panama, we can let you know how the contact fighting went down there.
that would be awesome. Yeah, I would love to have you back on to talk about what happened at the organization, and also I don't know, we'll do a little teaser. If you ever wanted to bring well, you're competing. You have a competitor right here, right? He said he's going to compete. So yeah, bring in some competitors and talk about their experiences. I think that would be really cool too, just so people can get an idea of what that is.
No, that would be awesome. We'll bring somebody from the team, and they can let you know everything, answer all the questions about how it goes through each fight, details on the rules. That would be fantastic.
Sweet. So one more time, the websites. Even though I have a link, there was 2 websites and maybe only one might show. I don't know, but they can find you at.
Let's put JJIF sport, SPORT.
Okay. They can Google.
So just JJIF sport. That'll lead to everything.
If they're very simple-minded and they need to Google something, which I know a lot of my listeners are.
JJIF Sport. Just Google JJIF Jiu-Jitsu. It'll be the easiest thing. It'll lead you to every.
Right.
JJIF Jiu-Jitsu. So there it is. If you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it on the multiple platforms on the internet, JJIF. Just Google JJIF. It'll come up, and you can check out some of the work. And hey, jump in, try it out. Have some fun.
Make sure you put jujitsu because Jiffy Lube might show up otherwise.
Or put it backwards, put Jiu-Jitsu JJIF. When you get
Yeah.
on there, you'll see our Pan American Union, you'll see US JJO. You can scroll through the whole thing. It'll answer so many questions. And then definitely anybody will send you our contact information again for Tabor and myself. Anybody contact, they're welcome to reach out to us whenever.
Okay, social media stuff. Social media stuff. Where can do you want people to find you? If you do, you can say it. If not, no worries. But where can people find you online? Personally.
My
The
Facebook is
USJO,
if they want my personal Facebook, it's just under Sarah Stanton, just
Okay.
like my name. Or I mean, if you have somebody that you know that needs to contact me, they can contact me on my WhatsApp as well. But
All right. T. You don't want people.
no
You don't,
social media, but we have the Instagram page for the USJJO, so they can check that out. Yep.
and that's
And then
under,
also Jiu-Jitsu International Federation. Instagram is really great. It has everything. So it's showing them in China right now, has the Asian championships that they just had. Those are like some of the biggest championships, the Asian championships, so and the Asian games. So they can find it all there and reach out and we'll get in touch.
All right. So there's the social media connections. This has been another episode of Social Gello with Angelo podcast. I want to thank again T and Sarah for coming out. And for the rest of you, remember these episodes once a week. Catch y'all next time.
This has been a Social Gello production. If you're interested in being on the show, feel free to reach out. Just email me at socialgello@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow me on social media, Instagram, Social Gello, Facebook, Social Gello with Angelo, or follow me on my personal page under Angelo Ferrer. LinkedIn, search Angelo Ferrer. YouTube, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, make sure to check out my YouTube channel, Social Gello with Angelo YouTube channel. And wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform, make sure to follow and subscribe and leave a review. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next time.